You're listening to Coexist Podcast with Madam LQ, Nomer Mindmaster, and T.O. Bride.
Guys, we're graced with the beautiful presence, of course, of two of international practitioners. One is Rob Recker from the United States, and
From
also
California.
from California. Oh, not United
different
States.
place.
Okay, okay.
There's a distinction.
And then another is one of our guests as well, Miss Cara Freya Jade. So you can also follow them on Instagram. We will be posting the links below. But we are going to talk about stuff like, okay, palalimin na natin. We're going to talk about ayahuasca, healing, the importance of healing,
The plant
and some other
medicines.
stuff. So let's see how the conversation goes. So, Rob, can you tell us what's your background, first off?
My background.
Yeah.
I was a poor kid,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom married a bunch of times. By the time I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
5 times.
Okay.
Moved a lot. One defining moment was being 5 years old, going into the grocery store, seeing this juicy plum. I grab it, take a bite. My mom slaps me, and she's like, "I have to pay for that shit." And that was the moment I realized we were poor. My mom's having a hard time busting her ass.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped me become man of the house at a young age, be aware, expand. She slapped,
Mm-hmm.
expanded awareness into my field. You know, with one hit, it was like, bah, and then my field just incorporated my family. And so I didn't ask for another candy bar like ever again, you know, and I had a job by the time I was 7, raking old people's leaves and just being a hustler and paying for all my own shit, just trying to help. And it just, it immediately showed me the vulnerability of women, their natural reliance on a man to provide certain things and be strong. And so I just felt a strength, and that automatically it needed to be used for my sister and for my mom. So that started defining me. And also gave me this sense of self-reliance, because I started getting jobs and I was already a gifted athlete, and so I just felt like I could do whatever the fuck I want. I can, you know. But it turned me also into an asshole, because I just thought I was better than everybody for a long time.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
You know.
How and when did you start working with the plant medicines?
So that's what this tattoo is about. When I was 19, I took mushrooms on a holiday. I fasted all day on Thanksgiving. It's a holiday where everyone eats a bunch of food, but instead I went against the grain. And I wasn't with my family because at this point, you know, like I said, my mom was an alcoholic. She was married a bunch of times. So by the time I left out of high school, I needed to just be on my own. My friends had taken acid a few months prior to me, and they could do these no-touch energy balls. And I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel the energy, and I was really
Energy
pissed
ball is
about
quite.
it.
We made a popular energy ball in the Philippines.
I remember you
Spirituality.
saying that. And it was such a great introduction for people, for them to feel that, to open their minds to magic and stuff. And so my friends had been open to it, and I regarded myself as so aware and so mentally, intellectually capable, and yet here I was energetically insensitive. And so I intentionally took the mushrooms with the hope of cracking something open, and it happened for me. So it changed me. That was the
Specifically with ayahuasca, when did you start working with ayahuasca?
That was 2011. My first ceremony was in a suburbia setting. You know, suburbia, like the middle of the city, you know?
Concrete jungle?
Yep. And it was from this guy that really shouldn't be serving, but he had just this innocent passion because he had had an amazing experience. So he wanted to provide it for other people. And so I get there, and it's a bunch of white collar, blue collar housewives and middle-aged people that were just normies, what it seemed like, you know? And he's playing music off of a CD player at the time from some tribe. And they're just, without that live music, there was chaos in the room. There was nobody holding space. And as I was getting into the medicine, I just realized I was very grounded. People are losing their shit. I saw a drum across the room, and it's not my ceremony. I didn't want to disturb. I didn't want to go against the protocols. But some part of me, after about 5 minutes, just said, I know I'm supposed to grab that fucking drum and bring something live. And so I did. And the second I started playing, it grounded the space, started cohering, and people that were losing it, these entities, one guy was turning into a snake. Everybody started coming back into their body.
Tell me about it.
And
Okay.
and so that was when I knew that I had guardianship capabilities and shamanic drumming abilities. But I had not opened my voice yet. I wasn't writing music or anything.
Mhm.
For the benefit of our viewers, can you walk us through or the concept or the practice of ayahuasca specifically? Because they're
Well,
really curious about it.
Yeah, a lot of people are
I've been
really
asking.
asking what's ayahuasca, what
Okay,
is,
so ayahuasca is known as the vine of the soul or the vine of the dead because the active component, the active chemical, the psychedelic compound inside of it is DMT, dimethyltryptamine. And this is essentially the same chemical that's released in massive amounts when we're born, when we die, or when we have a near death experience. And so essentially, it's the biomechanism for when our soul leaves our body. Every time we're dreaming, it's because DMT is being released, and so our soul leaves our body and it is experiencing a different reality in another dimension, dreaming. And so, this is a old jungle brew that out of 150,000 plant medicines species in the Amazon, you literally couldn't try every
Yeah.
permutation.
Yes.
The
Mhm.
the natives were told in dream time, you put these two together, you brew it for hours and hours. This will give you a magical dreamtime brew. And so the vine of the dead, vine of the soul, because DMT most often is related to when we're dying and when we're going to sleep. So it's like a nighttime celestial medicine.
Mhm.
And so you brew it together, typically done at nighttime in a really tight container, meant to be really safe because you're going to be vulnerable. Your energy field's going to be wide open. It was always a practice of the ancients that if you're leaving your body needs to be protected. It's vulnerable to things.
And what is normally do people get out of the ceremony? What are the,
So the interesting thing is there's a couple of things. For one, most of the time, it will often expand your range of sensory awareness, your ability to process frequencies in real time. And so you end up perceiving and experiencing more than just the limited visible light spectrum. And so with that extra sensitivity, you're usually able to see a geometric grid revealing itself, showing that all the air and all the pieces of elements, everything between you and me, is actually connected, and there's a divine matrix weaving itself through all of it. So, for one, it awakens you to the magical realm of this nature that's usually invisible, and it's made visible, which is powerful. And then another one is that because of this expanded, heightened sensory input and processing, usually you can feel your body, you can feel traumas, you can feel behaviors, you have a new perspective, a more expanded perspective on what's actually happening inside of us. So then you have a better chance of making a positive change because really, you know, everyone's trying to change, but we're always inundated with these ideas, oh, that's just who I am.
Mm.
Well, who we are is a combination of everything that's ever happened and all of our karma,
experiences?
and we can change it. And so it's accessing some of this information that's been hidden or we've been culturally conditioned to be desensitized to it. So now you're having access to parts of yourself. And then another one is oftentimes the plant spirit, she can visit you. And she'll actually have conversations and really clearly be giving you assistance to stepping more into your real self, your higher self, your remembered self. And so having that access to all the information that has been otherwise ignored and it's holding us back, it's absolutely has the potential for massive healing, and true healing. It's not just you're in this expanded state for hours, which gives you enough time to actually create new neural pathways.
Yeah.
And you can leave in one ceremony. They do say it's like equivalent to 10,000 hours of therapy.
Wow. So you have testimonials like people
Absolutely.
are really getting.
Absolutely.
Can you
One
give us an
ceremony
interesting?
can
Yeah.
change your life. One friend of mine, he's a dear friend now.
Mhm.
He moved to Bali. He was from the UK, real estate, total matrix, working hard. His dream was, let me move my family to Bali because it sounds cool, and that I'll check off all these things, and then I'll have the perfect life. He checked off all the boxes. Life still was shit to him. He was still depressed,
Mhm.
couldn't connect with his wife, wasn't being a great father, didn't feel happy,
Mhm.
despite having checked off all the boxes. He knew something was missing, and somehow people kept talking about ayahuasca, and he got curious about it. And so he showed up to the ceremony, and his matrix mind, his asleep mind, he was ready. He's like, this is a cult. These people are gonna rob me. He
Yeah,
still
yeah.
felt compelled to show up, but he literally took money, hid it in one of his pockets, and he was like, I know how much is in this pocket. I'm sure I'm gonna wake up out of a daze and the money's gone and I've been robbed blind. But he still had the courage and the curiosity to show up. And during the night, he broke free of all those patterns. It was a solid hour and a half where he really was going through a challenging time. You could just feel it wasn't a psychotic break. It was almost the opposite, where because really the desensitized version of us is psychotic.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so to have that be breaking out of his system, it was overwhelming for his conscious mind, and his soul was really kind of hovering above his body. And after an hour and a half of just being out of it, he finally came back into his body. And while it was happening, his eyes were closed, and he could see me. He could see my beloved. I was playing the flute. He knew what she was doing. His eyes were closed, but he could somehow see. And when he came to, he could feel energy. The energy became real. He was reattuned to the magic of life in ways that he knew something was missing, but he didn't know what it was. So
Okay.
once he experienced it, he could see the energy. He could see how nothing's an accident. All of these things are connected, and it's all divinely guided in a mystical way. And you can't unsee that. You know what I mean? And so now the magic was fully restored. The nature of our eternal self, he realized, by hovering out of his body a little bit, he was able to perceive his body from outside of it, and which helps again as well of knowing, oh, it's not just one life. Like my soul and my sense of self carries on with or without this body.
So people doing ayahuasca get to see their reincarnations or past life incarnations.
They can. The thing with ayahuasca is it's always a roll of the dice. It's unpredictable, much like life. You can set up the container in such a way where you have the best chance. It's like cleaning your house. You're gonna have the best chance of feeling relaxed when you set things up in a certain way and you prepare and you have your food. You got the table set. You do all these things, But at the same time, you still never know what you're gonna get. And there is a common phenomena that the saying is that you don't get what you want, you get what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I agree. Yeah.
And ideally, we learn to want what we need, and so we accept and surrender to the experience that's handed,
Yeah.
and then we're able to extrapolate the wisdom from the experience.
So how about Kara? What's your experience with plant medicines? Working with them.
I feel like I'm coming at it from an opposite end. For me, I'm new to venturing into this exploration, and for me, like I was born a medium, so I was
Right.
born tuned in and
Yeah.
seeing spirit and feeling, and
I think it's much better you tell our audience what's your expertise basically. What do you usually
Yeah, please.
first before we
Okay, sure.
dive into this.
Thank you. Well, a large part of my work is mediumship. So connecting to people's loved ones that have passed away. So being that bridge for communication. Sometimes I will just be that medium where their loved one has come in and I'm just transmuting the conversation. Sometimes I surrogate and they speak through me. So I'm talking in other languages and accents and at the same time witnessing myself. So it's very interesting having these things come out. But that is a large part of my work, mediumship. But I also teach a wide range of energy work. I've done a Grand Mastery in traditional Usui, Seishim, which is Egyptian, Karuna, Tibetan, quantum, and pranic healing. So I kind of teach a lot of
Are
different-
those energy healing
yes,
modalities?
yes, yeah, hands-on energy healing.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a really good starting point for
Mhm.
people getting into their spirituality, learning how to self-heal,
True.
giving them the tools.
Right.
Not just coming for a session and having a band-aid and then
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
back out into the world. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys can do this too. So that is a large part of my work.
Yeah.
Something I want to connect with is that a lot of people think that the plant medicine is what's doing this when we don't need plant medicine, and she's proof
Yeah.
of that.
Thank you, Rob.
The whole point is to be sensitive to these energies, and there's so many ways to do it, whether it's breath work, whether it's training these modalities, whether it's a natural gift. Plant medicines are just something that help remove the limiters and the conditioning so that we can be in that more natural state. And in many ways, the whole point of ceremony is to not need ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get it.
For me, stepping into plant medicine, I've only tried mushroom and cactus, and venturing into that, for me, it's confirming the things that I work in and the realms that I see, and it's piecing it all together for me. I'm like, whoa, okay. Seeing tree spirits and seeing tree codes and seeing energy and feeling and all of that, and then being in that through plants, it's a beautiful thing.
Cara, what do you think is the biggest problem of the world right now in terms of our spirituality?
Yeah.
Or
Biggest problem
yeah,
is our lack of self-awareness.
lack of self-awareness.
Because the way that I see it is we're so in the mind, and Earth has a shift in consciousness and evolution also. And this is a theory that I really resonate with, and that I feel is to be true. She has her own shifts, and it's said that it's 24,000 years. So the peak age, golden era, like Lemuria, Atlantis, falling down into Egyptian times, and then moving down into the medieval, the dark times. When we were up at the golden age, we were heart-led. We were heart-based. We would go into the mind when we wanted to understand something. Oh, this is a cup. How does it work? It holds water. We would consciously go into the mind, and then we'd be back in the heart. As we've fallen into these denser times, a need for survival, we've had to be in the mind. So as on an evolutionary process, we've flipped, and we've been very much in the mind. Because, there was sickness, there was plague, there was war, all this stuff. Now, we have to kind of have a conscious choice to go into our heart. How does that make me feel? We go down there, it makes me feel like that. Back up into the mind, ruminating, pulling it all apart. Or intuitively we'll feel something. What is that? Up into the mind. We have all these stimulations, we have all these distractions that we're just so in the mind, and we're not in the body, we're not self-aware.
Yeah.
And I feel that is the key. If we could just feel what we were feeling and had the emotional intelligence, I feel like we'd be such an advanced race.
That's funny how that lines up with, we've talked a lot about the conspiracy theory stuff and the esoteric, hidden esotericism that's in media, in the world at large. And most of the time what we're shown is reverse. And so there it is, the reverse that we're living in, where instead of being rooted here, we have to make effort. And it just, it lines up with how everything's backwards, the way it could be and maybe was at some point,
Right.
But it's exciting times because we are, 2010, we had a global jump in consciousness. There was a collective global jump. And we are on our way back up to the golden era. So we're out of the dark ages. We're actually in line with Egypt again on the other side. But we've got another 6,000 years until peak golden era. But there is that natural transition happening. You talk to people, they're like, I'm feeling things. And people are making this transition where they're jumping into energy work. They're jumping into meditation. They're exploring plant
Yoga.
medicine. Yes, all these
So
things.
is this the age of Aquarius we always hear about?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we're making that transition back into our hearts, although we've got many lives to really get there again, but it's happening. And we're cultivating that by having that self-awareness through different techniques and things.
Could you explain about the age of Aquarius? Because it's a topic that's rarely discussed in the
Yeah.
Philippines.
Yeah, she might be able to speak on it better, but essentially these larger cycles, which I do think ties into global warming. Global warming is this psyop meant to distract people from actually tuning into the natural cycles that are happening on the planet.
Mm.
And so they start blaming, different things that are not real. But this natural cycle is, like she said, we're coming back into a more unified place. And astrologically, it's in the stars. It was always meant to be this, apparently. And so it is an awakening time. I think we came from the age of Pisces, right?
Yeah,
Because
age of
I think it
Pisces.
works backwards.
Counterclockwise.
Yeah, which is interesting. Lemuria, Atlantis, water, the fall of that. And so now going into Aquarius, which is what, air,
Air, yes.
wind. And so
Yeah.
maybe like the mental.
That's why we had
The
the
intellect.
purging of the in the air, like the virus in the air.
Mm.
where
Yeah.
the-
For sure.
and then the consciousness is evolving.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Because it is interesting. Like, I feel like a lot of us end up remembering to some degree the golden era. And so it's interesting to come back here when it's not like that. And that might be attributing to some of our gifts in our natural leadership, our desire to be in service, to help the rest of humanity. This might just be a different round of students, working towards graduation.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to be the teachers and help the kindergarten students, help everyone keep
Yes.
moving up
Yeah.
through the schooling,
Mm.
As much NPCs that we can wake up.
Yes.
What is an NPC? Can you tell them? Can you tell them?
What is an NPC, Rob?
In my studies, it is possible. My best theory, and spoken with other people in government and things like that, is that there's genetic codes. These codons are sequences of DNA, and there are a small percentage of people on the planet that come with a certain, what is dubbed a non-terrestrial codon sequence.
Mhm.
And it is shown that people with this, and some people attribute it to like the Rh negative gene, and I think that ties into it a little bit as well. But this star code doesn't originate on Earth, and people that have it actually respond a little bit differently to subliminal programming, to vibrational technologies.
Whoa.
And so it's kind of like a Jedi star code that we retained access to our star family, where they don't originate as humans. But there's a lot of people that do originate. Their soul started as human, and they are trying to reconnect with source, but this DNA sequence hasn't been turned on yet. And so we have been able to break free from the matrix because of this little DNA sequence we snuck in through reincarnation, and then now we're using it, trying to help awaken it in others, to, just like the Matrix, which was more of a documentary than a movie,
But-
trying to
But the
awaken
Aboriginals always knew about this.
Yeah, there are some
Yeah.
cultures that
Because Kara's from
access.
Australia, by the way.
Mhm.
Yeah. You look at their artwork,
Yeah.
and they have big pictures of these blonde, tall beings coming down and
Totally.
giving them information. And
Can you stand up so that they can see that how these blonde tall beings are?
For context,
There you go.
I'm 5'3".
hello.
How's the weather up there? But down there is Australia, right?
But they're
Down
called-
under.
Yeah, these white-haired tall star beings. They were called minmins or
Minmins.
minmins or wajana. So they were called creator spirits, and they gave them a lot of their technology, a lot of their dreamtime stories, and a lot of information about the stars. Yeah.
And not so different with the Philippines. Our indigenous tribe always knew about connecting to the spirits. Somewhere along the way, we got reprogrammed perhaps to be a slave to this whole matrix system.
Well, you know, there's always a lot of talk about indigenous versus non-indigenous, but every culture has shamanic roots and shamanic traditions.
Yeah.
You know, every culture at some point was connected to the wisdom that comes from just being connected to life itself, being connected to nature, having your antenna clean so that it's picking up all the information of the cosmos rather than, you know, obviously the more westernized we get, it comes with this conditioning of putting rust on your antenna, turning your antenna down to people getting circumcised, and like that's an antenna, you know, and then you're affecting that. The way people were birthed in hospitals where you're being birthed to a stranger, you're being swaddled where you're literally wrapped in a blanket, getting programmed to be ready to be enslaved
Vaccinated.
and vaccinated.
Yep.
And oftentimes some of these hospitals, they'll take an imprint of the sole of your
The
foot,
blood, yeah.
a carbon copy of that. So instead of having your first touch be on the
Everybody.
earth, connecting to Pachamama, establishing that and maintaining that antenna, they're taking a print of the sole of your foot on this carbon paper, which is all some esoteric stuff of controlling the soul and having this energetic marker and being
Wow.
able to, manipulate.
And you get a certificate out of it.
Yeah.
You
get
sign up to be a part of
Right.
of the system.
of their show.
Yeah.
And your parents consented.
Yes.
They didn't know any better.
Wow.
Yeah, they didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
ignorance is not an excuse. The laws still apply. It's still consent. And I think that's, again, we've talked about that
Yeah.
esoteric, the predictive programming,
Yeah.
where the codes are written, what's going to happen, and people consent by doing nothing, you know?
Mm.
You know, that what you were just sharing there too also brought me back to your question. The biggest problem in the world is we are so cut off because
The
our
disconnection.
foods are poison. We have all this medicine and pharmaceutical things. Our bodies are really polluted. Our food isn't even pure,
I
healthy
agree.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got all these things that are
We're addicted to
distorting.
sugar.
Yeah, and they're blocking us. They're making the body dense. You know, the column of glory, the conduit, is dense. So how are we going to connect and stream and have that beautiful vibration coming down from our higher self when we're just trying to filter out all this stuff and
It's
just trying to
attacked on
function.
every angle, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the etheric. Like even chemtrails are designed to stop our prana tube from actually accessing Father Sky cosmic wisdom. And it has certain chemicals that are known to have a resonant frequency to stop our etheric connection. And then, but the beautiful thing is, I feel like the esoteric components, the proverbial they, the powers that be, these dark, non-corporeal, parasitic entities that influence humans and start whispering ideas, much like the parasite like Candida. It makes people think they want sugar, and that's not even their own original idea. That's coming from the parasite. So I feel very much like there are these energetic parasites that infiltrate people, use them as the host, whisper negative dialogue, whisper all these negative things, and that's not actually
Feeding
coming
them.
from our soul.
Candida is the parasites in the gut.
It's
right?
that yeast, yeah.
And
Hold on.
Hold on.
Thank you so much for coexisting in our show. Don't forget to follow us so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to spread the word, please feel free to share about the show on social media using the hashtag #CoexistPodcast and be sure to tag us. Also, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, we thank you for joining us on the Coexist Podcast. We'll catch you in the next episode. And until then, love and light.